Hey, what's going on, guys? What's happening? YouTube, you guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. I saw an interesting story earlier, figured I'd share it with you guys. This one comes to us from thehill.com, and it's titled "The Majority of Americans Believe the Worst of the Pandemic is Still Ahead of Us." Back in July, people, just a month ago, people were really optimistic about the direction things were going. Mask mandates were lifted. We were able to see our neighbors' smiling faces. We were able to see people in the grocery store. We were able to understand people when they were talking to us. Things were going, things were opening back up. People were going on vacation, going to swimming pools, dining out. When I walk through or go for a run through the downtown area of my town, I see people out eating and drinking and live music, and there's fun things going on. And people are optimistic for the future. And, whether it be because of COVID resurfacing or the media letting us know 24/7 that the Delta variant is going to kill us all, people are much more pessimistic. And I think in some ways this is kind of a business story because, the stock market is forward looking. Businesses plan forward looking. If restaurants and bars think that we're headed for another lockdown, that people are scared and aren't going to leave their houses, they're not going to come out, they're not going to support them, businesses aren't going to reinvest in their businesses. The stock market likely could wind up going down. And so this is kind of important information that people are pessimistic about the future, or at least the fall and heading into winter time. And again, this is a stark contrast from like just a month ago. Yesterday I saw something online. I think this was coming out of North Korea, but now they have something called the Delta Plus variant. I'm not sure exactly what Delta Plus is. We got Lambda, Delta, Delta Phi, Omega. I can't even keep track of all these variants. We're going to be taking a look at this article today. I'd be curious to hear from you guys. How are you feeling about things right now? Are you more optimistic now than you were a month ago? Are you less optimistic now than you were a month ago? You know what this kind of makes me think of, just in terms of how I think it's a bad thing that we have this 24/7 news cycle, not only when it comes to coronavirus, but just negative. The news cycle is dominated by negative news. People, even though we hate it, we also like negativity and doom and gloom. It's like why people stop to kind of ogle at a car crash. And we tend to pay attention to negative news, and because of that, the media pushes negative news. And now that we have a 24/7 news cycle, you're not just getting the negative news at 5, 7, and 9. You're getting the negative news 24 hours a day. Way back in, I think it was like the 1920s or 1930s, there was a radio broadcast called the War of the Worlds. And it was a fictional, radio show. But on this fictional radio show, they made it sound as if there was. I remember hearing about this story in like a mass media and communications class in college. They basically had like a fictional news broadcast, like the aliens are invading. They're knocking down apartment buildings. They're spewing poisonous gas, and it just kind of goes to show how much people trust the media. I know a recent survey came out that said the media in the U.S. is the least trusted media in the world, and with good reason. But nonetheless, people still do pay attention to the media, and most people are kind of dumb, don't do their own research, and don't really kind of dig into what's going on in the world. They just see headlines from the mainstream media. And, I kind of drew some similar inferences from this War of the World thing, where even though the radio is putting out this fake story about this fake alien invasion, people literally believed it. People were running around with scarves over their face to not inhale this poisonous gas from the aliens. Some people were jumping off buildings and killing themselves. And I see kind of the same thing going on today. I can't speak for you guys, but I hear on the news that everybody's falling over dead everywhere. The Delta variant's coming to get us all. Hospitals are overwhelmed. And when I look around me, none of my friends have COVID. None of my friends' friends have COVID. None of my friends' families have COVID. The hospitals near me don't seem to be, overloaded. And so kind of what I'm hearing on the media is just not really matching up with what I see with my own eyes. And it's really kind of a mind fuck in the sense that, reality versus perception. If the media were to, I really don't trust the media, but if the media were to tell me, XYZ is going on in India, I don't have feet on the ground in India. I'm not in India. I don't really know what's going on there. So, if I don't know any better, I probably just take their word for it. In the same way that if I don't know what's going on in Florida or Texas or California, I can only see what's going on in front of me with my own eyes. But when the media spurs these, fear-mongering articles and Delta's going to kill us all, I think a lot of people just believe it because they don't really know any better. And they maybe don't necessarily think, like, is this true? Is this really what I'm seeing with my own eyes? And the media is 24/7 doom and gloom. So it's no wonder that Americans believe the worst is ahead. Without further ado, let's get into this one. Again, this one comes to us from The Hill, and it's titled, "A Majority of Americans Believe the Worst in the Pandemic is Still Ahead." A majority of Americans in new polling that a majority of Americans in new polling say that the worst of the coronavirus pandemic is still ahead of us. And think about how crazy this is, right? Like, I know the Delta's out there. Supposedly it's more contagious. Typically, viruses get less deadly but more contagious. But I mean, we have, 70% of the population who has one of the vaccines. How could things be worse next month or 2 weeks from now than it was a year ago when, hospitals were supposedly overwhelmed? There was no vaccine, and there was no vaccine in sight. We didn't really have treatments. We didn't know what we were dealing with. How could somebody be more pessimistic about now and moving forward than they were 6 months ago or a year ago? I just don't get it. But 54% of respondents said that the worst is still ahead of us, compared to 46% who said the worst is behind us in the COVID-19 pandemic, according to a Harris poll released Monday. The number represents a stark decline in just the past few weeks in a number of Americans who believe the worst of the pandemic are over. At the beginning of July, 70% of respondents told Harris that the worst of the pandemic was behind us, but last week, 56%, that's about a quarter percent said the same thing, and polling company attributed the 14% drop to the surge of the Delta variant. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention backtracked its mask guidance last month to advise that even fully vaccinated Americans should wear masks in certain indoor settings in areas of substantial or high-risk transmission. I think my home state of Illinois just came out the other day, and actually today, I think Pritzker came out and said that both public and private schools, K through 12, are going to be required to have masks this fall. And school's going back soon. I don't remember school going back this early when I was young, but I have a number of cousins who are teachers and some younger cousins, and they're going back on like August 11th. So school's going to be back in session soon. One thing I heard that was just kind of crazy to me is my little cousin, I think she's going into 5th or 6th grade, she was telling me that they're not allowed to use their lockers this year. I don't know if you guys remember how many fucking textbooks you had and how big these textbooks were. But I mean, if you had to carry all your textbooks around, it would literally like break the straps on your backpack. But she said they're not going to be allowed to use their lockers this year because it would put them in too close a proximity of other students. But, and this makes total sense, they will be using the locker room for gym class. So for gym class, when they're all sweaty and breathing heavy after gym class, they will be in the locker rooms and they will be using lockers. But in the hallways, they're not allowed to use lockers. Makes complete and total sense. I can see why they did that, obviously being sarcastic there. Concerns about the variant have caused some areas to reimpose mask mandates. However, experts say that those who are unvaccinated remain at a much higher risk of infection and severe disease. Harris Poll CEO John Grzyma told Axios, "It's clear we are far from mission accomplished on COVID." 76% of respondents in Monday's poll said they were very or somewhat concerned about the Delta variant, compared to 24% who were not at all or not too concerned. I gotta say, I fall into the latter camp. The poll was conducted online from July 30th to August 1st among a sample of 2,026 adults. It does not list the margin of the sampling error. And as always, I always like to check out the comments. Let's see what people say. Somebody says, "Cases rocket. It's just cases. Show me hospitalizations." And earlier in this, right, we were told, who really cares about the number of cases? It's really hospitalizations and deaths that we care about. But the media is kind of really hyping us up about cases. Let's see. Okay, I don't really get that comment. I absolutely don't give a damn if the unvaccinated get sick and die. They have had every opportunity to protect themselves and other Americans. If you are one of the self-centered morons, go infect your friends and relatives. And here's what's funny. I noticed that vaccinated people are getting really upset at unvaccinated people because, they're responsible for life going back to normal. They don't want to have to wear masks to protect people who chose not to get vaccinated. People who didn't get vaccinated obviously don't think that COVID is a huge risk to them. It's not a big concern for them. They've obviously done a risk assessment of themselves and decided that they're willing to roll the dice with COVID. So nobody's asking, none of these unvaccinated people are asking to be protected. A large number of vaccinated are dying as well. Go figure, wake up. Sadly, the children will become the moron victims. Looks like you misread Babel. Let's see. Be safe, be vigilant, be well, fellow Americans, and stay away from the COVID colonies of Florida and Texas. What's kind of interesting is you have record numbers of people moving to Florida and Texas. So, what people say in online comment sections and on Reddit isn't necessarily reflective of the real world. Let's see, most pandemics have multiple waves, usually around 3 or 4. Generally, one of the later waves is worse than the first one. 1918 pandemic, the second wave was 4 times worse than the first. So I guess people are saying that we're going to have a worse wave here in the fall. Because of huge base of virus out there able to mutate, most likely we are stuck with ongoing COVID variants forever. Hopefully, hope is not a strategy. Vigilance and science is. Check out what the Lambda variant is doing to Peru. Tell Slojo to stop spreading the China flu all over America. Call your doctor, social distance, wear a mask, get vaccinated, study history. Let's see. We are more than thrilled at the prospect of control freaks not visiting or moving to free states. We aren't free as long as the virus is a threat. We can't be free because posers keep importing the virus over the southern border. Too funny. The left cried Trump didn't shut down fast enough. Well, they called him a racist. Now poser imports the virus. So I guess what they're kind of referring to is the Biden administration is bringing COVID-infected illegal immigrants in from across the border and putting them up in hotels. I didn't know Florida shared a border with Mexico, planes, trains, and buses. So it must be a coincidence that it's the states that now have low vaccination rates and refuse to mask up that are having the problems. Let's see. We'll read a couple more and then we'll call it a day. LOL, there are these long multi-seat vehicles on the bus. Okay, so now everybody's arguing about whether Biden's busing COVID-infected illegals around the country. Let's see. Okay, so it seems like this has kind of devolved into is Biden busing people all over? But anyhow, that's the article. Let me know your thoughts. Are you optimistic for the future? Are you pessimistic for the future? What do you think fall is going to look like? Would love to hear your thoughts as always, so drop a comment down below. If you guys enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button below. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you on the next video.